Okay, good. So that is our analysis of this first triad. So here's our next um, transitional phrase, and it's also a contrast cue showing difference. On the other hand, the expression of how these two animal characters react to the conflicts they are placed in, comma, shows contrasting messages about the intelligence of the animal mind. So here's our next transition. Notice how I'm using these transitions strategically to make sure everything is ordered and linked together. So this now, that bit there is my idea sentence of triad 2. Now I'm going to move into my um, kind of next section, and then we'll see that the paraphrase or citation begins and carries on here. So this is also a bit of an idea sentence. So this is actually kind of like a transitional idea, and then this is going to be my actual concept for triad number 2. Old Mossy. And that's the character, not the story. So we don't need to italicize that. And this is one of the reasons why we use italics with story titles, because sometimes the story title will be the same as a character's name. And in that case, how can we tell the difference? Well, that's why the italicized version, we understand that to be the story title, whereas the non-italicized version, that's the character name. So firstly, Old Mossy, seeing the devastation of his creek, explodes into destructive retribution against the sleepy loggers. So that's my idea sentence there, my concept sentence. Now here's my paraphrase. Now you'll notice, now I've shifted it. I've done an integral citation just to mix it up and show a little bit of spicing here. Finlayson, 2021, painted a graphic scene of the grizzly roaring and smashing the mess hall while the loggers flailed in vain against the godlike power of the huge bear. So that's my it's a bit of a citation paraphrase mixed with some analysis as well. And then you'll notice it's a page range that I've pulled this support from. So I've indicated the page range properly. When you do a range of pages, we use pp dot, and then we do the range of numbers. Okay, good. So then we're moving into the second half of the paraphrases for this augmented triad. We learn, we grow, we learn new things, and implement them. Okay, opposingly. So there's another cue that we use to show contrast. And again, it's also a transitional tool. Lakshmi initially resists the human desire to plunge foolishly up. That's our third example of a removable or scoopable phrase. So Lakshmi initially resists the human desire to plunge foolishly into the danger zone of where a tiger has just killed a sambar deer and takes the initiative to save her charges by bearing them away from the striped peril watching in the tall grasses. So this is kind of an interesting sentence. If we look at this sentence, what type of sentence is it? If you said that it is a simple sentence with a compound verb, you'd be correct. You can see that there's the main character, so Lakshmi. Okay, so this also, here's a new thing. We should put this into the past tense, right? This is our citation. So there you go, I fixed that. Now our signal verb's in the past tense. There's the first verb, resisted the human desire to plunge foolishly into the danger zone of where the tiger has just killed a sambar deer. And now we need to put this verb into the past tense as well. So took the initiative to save her charges by bearing them away from the striped peril watching in the tall grasses. So we notice that the complements coming after our main verb, are quite long, but still, this is actually just a simple sentence. It's got one main subject noun that is doing two different verbs, and the two verbs are joined by the fanboys element and here, coordinating conjunction. Okay, wonderful. So then we can see I've added a non-integral citation here to show where I pulled this information. So that's why it's really useful to have your resources ready to go. And you can see that I've actually got both of my stories right here on the back screen, just kind of ready to be utilized. You can see there's Old Mossy there, and as I showed you before, there's a real live tiger hunt there. And they're both here. These are my annotated stories, so they're ready to be deployed, and I have them opened, so that's part of my proper preparation. Okay, so let's finish this off then. Here we're moving into our analysis sentence. So you'll notice the analysis is always going to be in the present tense, and that difference in the verb tenses between our paraphrases and our analysis is one of the ways the reader knows we've moved from the borrowed information into my original sentence, my original thoughts of analyzing those borrowed sections. Okay, so this clarifies the author's respect for nature, but it also shows us that animals can be friends to humanity or enemies, depending on how we treat the animals we encounter. So that's the analysis of this difference point between the character development. And then we're going to look at the final sentence. This is what I call that wrap up sentence that should project forward to our next main body paragraph. Overall, the relational focus on humans and animals interacting is also crystallized by the use of advanced story elements such as similes and metaphors. So, very nice development of idea here. I kind of retrace what I've just done. This kind of interaction between humans and animals was one of the big things that this paragraph discussed. But then I also kind of hint at what the next main body paragraph will be looking at. And again, it's still going to talk about this kind of interaction because that's the major conflict of both stories. And yet, or one of the major conflicts, I should say. And then I also show that I'm going to be moving into looking at these alpha level story devices, similes, and metaphors. So then let's do a quick analysis review of this paragraph. So we've got the word count was 316. It's a little bit long, but it is acceptable within the parameters of this essay. So then how many triads did I have? I had 2 triads, those 2 augmented triads, and this fits our purpose of comparison and contrast because the first triad talked about similarities of the character development, and the second triad talked about differences. How about citations? There were 3 non-integral and 1 integral, and that's actually a very nice mix for citation use. Okay, so hopefully that shows you a strong example of how to develop a main body paragraph.